Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Bearhug Club podcast. Greg coming at you live. Well, not live, actually. We're not through the power of Wednesday Night Paw, Friday Night Raw for a change. No, we're here for a special edition. This special edition is something I've been wanting to do for a while. Back when we had our 1-year anniversary, I had the idea that I wanted to sit down individually with the Bearhug boys and get their top 10 favorite wrestling matches, and I will get to the reason why in a little bit. But let's introduce my first guest. He was the last member to join the Bearhug Club podcast, but he is sorely one of our favorite members. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Scott Archer.
Hey, thank you. Save the best for last and then the best for first afterwards, I guess. I am Scott. Yes, I've been a wrestling fan. I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid. I don't remember how young. One of my first wrestling memories is Paul Bearer being buried in cement. And then around that, because I used to watch it around my nan's house as well, and my nan was watching this too and was like, "Nah, this kid shouldn't be watching this." But I do remember like Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, all that stuff. And then around about the time when I started getting into the later stages of primary school, I don't know what happened. It just kind of fell off. We no longer had Sky, so we couldn't watch Smackdown or Raw, so wrestling just kind of teetered out until I happened across a stream of a particular match, which I'll get to in my honorable mentions, that got me back into wrestling back in 2014. And just started watching a lot of WWE, and then the rabbit hole, I fell down. It's so bad, and now I'm trapped, and now here you find me on a podcast about it. The rest is history. Thank you for having me discuss that journey. Yes,
absolutely, man. Well, yeah, as we kind of alluded to there, Scott will be giving us his top 10 favorite wrestling matches of all time. And the reason I wanted to do these is because obviously I do this podcast with my mates, and I mean, Scott, we've known each other like 5 years now, I want to say.
Yeah, since around 2016. Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, 5-6 years going on. And I just always, I know my people who are wrestling fans, and obviously I appreciate that you are. I just don't know why they're wrestling fans. And I feel like if you want to get to the root of it, doing a top 10 list is one of the best ways to do it. It not only gives me an understanding of why you're a wrestling fan or what you like in wrestling, but it just generally lets me know what kind of matches you really adore, what you kind of put up there as like the pinnacle. We should obviously say when it comes to top 10 lists, the subjective as well. And anyone's top 10 list can literally change about a week later. So
yeah,
I'm as we'll see with Scott's endless honorable mentions. I'm amazed he narrowed it down to 10.
I want to make sure everyone's included, and to let them know that if it was a top 30 list, they could have made it. But yeah, this was helpful for me as well, because wrestling fandom, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Greg, is a strange. Sometimes you need to be reminded why you like it. It's just you like it so much, and then sometimes you'd watch a thing and be like, "Why do I like this? What weird thing that I found myself adoring." And this was a slight reminder of what I like about it. Doing like having this as a thought experiment and be like, okay, what are my favorite matches and why do I like them so much? I very much ranked these ones, like you said, subjectively. So they aren't. This list would differ from what I reckon objectively are the best matches of all time. Because
of course,
it's something I would like to take out of a wrestling match. That say an instance of a match that isn't on this list is Okada versus Omega.
Right. Everyone objectively would say that is one of the best wrestling matches of all time.
Yes, and I would actually agree. But subjectively, like, I can't really explain why it's not on this list. It's tough, really. I don't think I've... Like you say, this could change on a dime, and I could watch that match again and be like, yeah. I could, like, then re-notice all the subtleties and be like, okay, I get to appreciate that. But these are the matches I go back to after the first watch and watch again because there's something particular that kind of calls to me in a weird way. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into this.
No, absolutely. Well, it's like you were saying there. I think one of the reasons that, especially we became friends, and it was through the medium of wrestling. And I feel like this is why it's quite interesting that you're the first guest, because I mean, other than Jace, for the longest time, wrestling was this very taboo thing that only I knew he liked. Like, you didn't know many wrestling fans. And then when I got to uni, you were the first person I met who actually was not only a fan of wrestling, but was a fan of wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wasn't a casual, which is why I was like, okay, I'm going to grab onto you now. We're best friends now.
You're not leaving my side.
And I mean, in a lot of respects, if we hadn't met, this podcast wouldn't have met, because I met Garrett through you.
Yeah.
And it was me and him who started this off. And I mean, yeah, potentially without me meeting you, who knows where this could have ended up, whether this could have been a thing.
Yeah, it's all absolute chance. And I, like, around about 2014, when I did get back into it, I very much did get back into it as a casual, because I was like, I remember early Cena back when I used to watch as a kid, and me being like, he's the coolest guy in the world. He raps. And when I got back into it, when I got back into it in 2014, I remember talking to Brogan, who very much has been a hardcore fan for his entire life. He wasn't like me. He didn't have a dip where he stopped paying attention. He has been paying attention for so long.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down with him having a drink, and I was like, oh, I was watching wrestling the other day. He's like, oh, yeah, who's your favorite? I was like, oh, no, John Cena's kind of cool, isn't he? He's like, what? No, John Cena sucks. He buries everyone. I'm like, what do you mean? He had the spinning belt, right? The spinning belt was cool. So genuinely like that. And the more Broken was like, no, you're looking at it from the complete wrong angle. And the more like, I think he's very much responsible for me going from casual to the, oh, see, the thing is about the Japanese style in comparison to the North American style, and especially even the Canadian style. And that's, like I said, this is a deep rabbit hole that I've fallen down, and I've appreciated every moment of it. But yeah, no, I think the moment, because I was like you, because when I got to uni, I'm a drama student, for crying out loud. I was like, there ain't no way anyone but me in what seems like the entirety of LSBU are going to be into the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit inside my uni room and just stream the whole thing. I'm not going to bed at 5 a.m. most nights anyways. Kind of helps. Yeah. And then I don't know how it was brought up between me and you. Just the offhand. I think you might have made an offhand wrestling reference, or you were wearing some merch of some kind, which
Possibly.
which made me very casually just kind of go like, oh, I watch wrestling occasionally. And that's then, I think if I remember this right, all we could talk about for the preceding 5 or so hours, which made the other people we were hanging out with at the time very upset.
Well, I mean, I do remember the first night we met, but we can't go into too many details in case our mums are listening to this.
Like hell, mine is.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It was one of those things where, because again, I met you through my flatmate, because he knew Kelly and you were friends with Kelly at the time.
Yeah, who was my flatmate. So it's an absolute chance meeting. Chance meeting.
100%. And look where it's led us. Well, we'll probably do a bit more preambling as we go through, but we've obviously got the list to get through, but before then we've got probably at least 3 lists worth of honorable mentions to clear.
Oh, you betcha.
Previous watchers of this will know whenever we do one of these top lists, Scott always just stacks on the honorable mentions. So we'll rapid fire them.
This is just in case anyone in the comments goes, yes, but what about so and so versus so and so? Yeah,
it's your list, buddy.
Yes. Well, like it's like when I like to use hyperbole, And whenever I do on the podcast in previous episodes, I'm like, oh, that's one of my favorite matches of all time. So this is me covering my back somewhat, being like, yes, they were one of my favorite matches of all time. But now I have to numerically rank them. So sorry. So I'm going to go through them kind of rapid fire. You can just, whenever you feel like just stopping me, feel absolutely free. So here we go. Firstly, I will use the match that got me back into wrestling. And it's weird because it's like not the best wrestling match either. This is very much a sentimental thing, but some cool things happened in this match, including some of the best sells of all time and one of the best returns of all time. See, here's the hyperbole coming back in. This is the Survivor Series elimination match from Survivor Series 2014, one of which Dolph Ziggler was the best sellers, and Sting coming back to do his business. Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa absolutely deserves its recognition.
Lights out one?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, 100%. Danielson versus Page, 1 and 2, I put here. Nakamura versus AJ Styles at Wrestle Kingdom 10 was the first New Japan match I ever saw because that was incredible. Ibushi versus Ospreay at Sakura Genesis, purely for one spot, and that's the spot that got memed the absolute hell out of, where he flips out of the Avalanche Rana, stands up, and they do the weird anime stare to one another. Perfect. Ibushi's back versus Alexander in the Cruiserweight Classic 2016. Classic match. Rewatched that the other day. The Trinity, Gargano versus Ciampa. All three of them deserve to be recognized. All three of them are perfect. And number one very nearly made the top 10. Yet again, Lee versus Dijakovic. All of the matches they had together. Keith Lee is my favorite. I love him. And King Correct will never happen because last time I was on this podcast, I guessed that it was going to be Okada instead of Keith Lee debuting in AEW. And I staked my reputation on it, and I shouldn't have because I'm stupid. Noam Dar versus Ospreay versus El Ligero at WCPW Loaded in 2016.
Nice.
I love that match. I love it so much. So many flippy boys. Austin versus Rock at Mania 17. It's
solid choice.
Imagine that in a list following Dar versus Ospreay versus Ligero.
I mean, so far your honorable mentions, I should say, are a lot of people. Some of those matches would be top of some people's lists. So
exactly, like I said, that's like the objective lists. My list is weird, wacky, and all over the place. Yeah, another one that was this was top of my list a little while ago. To be fair, it changes, but. Owens versus Cena at the Elimination Chamber 2015 for the United States Championship. John Cena is a great wrestler. I don't know what Brogan's talking about. Spinny belt rules. Orton versus Taker at Armageddon 2005. Orton sells Undertaker being a dead man very well because you would be scared of a dead man. Arcade Anarchy on Dynamite 2021 had so much going on, including the debut of the Pixies being the theme for Orange Cassidy, and it made the finish of the match fit so well. And also Lego Thumbtacks is genius. The Rumble 2010 being my favorite Rumble, just about missed out on 10 spot. It got switched out the last minute. The best match I ever saw live, Naomichi Marufuji versus Pete Dunne at Lucha Forever Ultimo Battle 2017. I saw that with Garrett. I remember Garrett singing its praises a couple weeks ago on the pod too. And lastly, both matches between Michaels and Taker. And included in that as well is Triple H and Taker as well, the first one they had.
Hot damn, Scott.
Yet again would be number
one. What have
you
left for us?
Well, let me get to that. Some people would be like, "What the hell is he thinking? Putting those on top of them?" I will explain. I basically rank these in terms of like how many times I've been like, I want to rewatch that match today. You know what I mean? Just like I feel like rewatching that match today because it puts me in a great mood.
That's what it should be about, man. Like, honestly, I think when I come to do mine, there'll be someone there. People will be like, okay, that's very typical. But I think there'll be someone there that will surprise people.
Yes.
Whenever we get to mine. Some point.
Absolutely. And I look forward to it too. Number 10 starts with a lie I told not but 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
When I said that the trilogy between Gargano and Ciampa, when I said that they weren't all on the list, I've scrolled up and realized that I did do a last-minute swap not but moments ago.
We're off to a flying start, Scott.
Well, flying start. Yes, number 10 is Gargano versus Ciampa at TakeOver New Orleans 2018, which is their first match together.
Which you and me have got a lot of happy memories of because we watched this live.
Yes,
and
we
what
did.
Correct me if I'm right, this is the same show that had the 6-man ladder match, didn't it? Is that the right one?
I'm not sure. This is the match where Ciampa first came out with no music.
I think that is. It was the one for WrestleMania, and it had one of the most insane cards. It was TakeOver New Orleans, wasn't it?
Yes, 2018.
Yeah, let's check the rest of the back card. Yeah, so that was the one that had the insane ladder match, which debuted.
Lars Sullivan, Velveteen Dream, and Adam Cole and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Ricochet debuting as well. Shayna Baszler versus Ember Moon. That was also the night I pulled off my amazing prediction when it was Undisputed Era Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly fighting the Authors of Pain, Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong. And they've just done that tease of it. They've done that tease of them wanting Roderick Strong, and he defied them. And I said, I bet he's going to turn tonight. And I was right.
Yes, I remember that. And me being like, no. Look at Roddy. Look at him in his little vest. He's so cute.
And then also had Aleister Black versus Andrade Cien Almas, which was... I mean, that card was just too good.
just need to re-watch this whole ass show once again. This is easily... I look back on this whole feud, this whole trilogy with such fondness. You will find that this whole top 10 list is a bit of a love letter to NXT. As you may know, it's one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah.
The return of punk rock wrestling to the mainstream.
I mean, here's the thing with NXT. If people don't understand why we're so upset that NXT 2.0 is a thing, they clearly weren't watching the Black and Gold brand at all, at least until recently, you know?
It's... When you were saying earlier, it's like I'm interested to see what these guys find in wrestling. It's like I love I love a Greek tragedy. I love I love two characters who have come to battle and they show it in their emotions. I like the Shakespearean element of wrestling matches.
That's your drama side coming out. Like you are someone who loves the story. You need a good story to get to the in-ring action. And this had not only a tremendous story, but as we'll get into, the in-ring action was just...
top-notch. These two can have a feud for life, and I'll watch every single match, and I'll be constantly impressed. Couple notes I had when rewatching. Of course, like I said, Ciampa coming out to no music and just booze. Unending, unrelenting, throughout the entire match. The crowd, this is some like this heel work. I don't think I've seen anything to match its absolute energy from the crowd. Like they were just hard against Ciampa the entire time, which just made Gargano an absolute superhero.
Which is just the testament given, like by this point. I mean, obviously for the last decade or so, it's been more of the common thing for the heels to get cheered and the faces to get booed. So the fact that they were able to actually pull off the desired effect speaks volumes to how good this feud was.
Absolutely. And it's also one of the first matches since getting back into wrestling. I think you might have been there for my reaction to this at the time, but it's rare you see the exposed concrete.
Yeah.
Which is such a good spot. As soon as someone tears up that mat, it's like someone's breaking the fourth wall. It's like someone in a Marvel movie going to the green screen behind them and tearing it. It's just like it's such a break of the typical discourse. I was just like, what are you doing? The mat's there for safety reasons. Stop it. This isn't funny anymore. and then the power bomb on it is like constantly Ciampa's getting punished for his hubris and punished for because it plays into the finish as well. Because Ciampa has this whole hubris of "this is my moment," and that's his entire catchphrase throughout this whole thing. This is my moment. This is my moment. Whilst Gargano is just upset that his friend betrayed him, to the point where it plays into the finish of the match when Gargano gets the knee, the crutch, and gets ready to hit Ciampa. Ciampa shies away, and there's a brief moment where Gargano's looking down at Ciampa cowering, and then goes to give him a help up, which then Ciampa goes to hit them with the knee brace that he's been wearing this entire time. The reason he's been out for so long. Then it's countered into Gargano grabbing that knee brace and getting him with the Gargano escape around the mouth with the knee brace, which is just an awesome visual thing. I like. That's another thing I love. I love a good visual.
Yeah,
I love a good visual, and with the knee brace across the face, it was just absolutely perfect. Every element of the match played into the story they were telling and the build-up. It was like they had a whole wall, an armory of Chekhov's guns, if you will, and then proceeded to just grab one, fire it, drop it, grab one, fire it, drop it. It's just like I watching this match back is just very satisfying. Very satisfying.
Absolutely. No, I mean, again, solid choice. I mean, I've got an insane amount of fond memories for not just this match, but this pay-per-view. Because I mean, again, we stayed up live to watch this and WrestleMania the following night, and this show just blew WrestleMania out of the water.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think by the time, I mean, given WrestleMania is a lot longer anyway, we were pretty much tired anyway. But I mean, I remember us being revved up the whole night for this show. And usually, at least towards the end, I'm starting to feel a bit tired. But man, by the time they were about to hit the ring, I was just pumped up. It was just so good. And you're right. I mean, the match is like nearly 40 minutes long, but it doesn't feel like that. It flies by. Like they worked it so well. Like again, like I said, tons of great visuals, just masterfully set up. Still wince when Ciampa's head hits the concrete. That was gnarly. And,
yeah. As someone who has, because it's smooth concrete, right? That's a stone floor. That's so like as someone who's fallen over before, as anyone can relate, I have fallen from nay but this far off the ground and have been winded from it. And that winding has KO'd me for 45 minutes afterwards. I'll be like, oh, this. I don't know how tall Gargano is, but that's still a good 5.5 feet too tall to fall onto concrete, maybe power bombed onto it. I don't care how well you can take that bump, but also the fact that typically they teach you in wrestling to take the bump with your hands going down like that. Ciampa took it as you should take power bombs to that, like this, where he's curled up. He's of course protecting the back of his head, but then again, that leaves his whole ass spine to drop onto exposed concrete. There's no way to not make that hurt. There's absolutely no way. And the fact that they just continued the match, they are tough boys. And the other two matches in this trilogy just hammer that point home so hard. I adore this whole ass trilogy so much.
No, I agree. Again, you're right. If you're gonna take a bump on concrete, you're just gonna have to eat shit and like it. There's no way it's gonna be comfortable at all.
Yeah, fully.
Solid first pick, Scott. So what have you got for number 9?
For number 9, we're going back in time a little bit to a match that I believe changed wrestling history, and this being Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13.
Nice.
The textbook, not just the textbook, but the magnum opus of double turns. As I said earlier, like the visual, and it's the most classic wrestling visual I think ever. of
The
Austin
blood, just
with the
blood coming
blood,
down.
feeling like just not relenting in Bret Hart's sharpshooter. It's not just that spot that I like about this match, but the whole match's pacing. There's not one wasted movement in this entire match. Everything to the most minute detail plays into this story to the point where every element of subtlety, even the things that, because there's a lot of audience in that WrestleMania, there's people going all the way up to the sky. I don't know how, I forget the attendance to WrestleMania 13, but there are a lot of people there, and none of them are going to notice the subtlety that was caught on camera to like every minute aspect of Brett's face when he's getting more and more frustrated that he can't put Steve away, and Steve's just like almost where he's just because he's going over his knee the entire match, the knee with the brace on it. So every little microcell of that knee that Austin does that you only really recognize on like the 5th viewing or the 4th viewing. I think the attention to detail in this match warrants his place on this, and of course the finish where it set both stars to Austin to go on his face run, which single-handedly saved WWE. Don't care how you look at it, that is just the truth. And Bret Hart with his heel trajectory, and yeah, that's my notes on this match. It's just an example of also how to sell a limb that builds into the finish of this match. That Austin, it made both men look very good. It didn't put anyone down in defeat, which a lot of matches currently do, even in AEW sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because the thing is, like, this is obviously, you're right, the match itself is tremendous. It's just obviously a lot of people remember it for the double turn. And if that's the case, go back and watch it. It's brilliant. It is literally probably, for my money, the only example of when a double turn has really gone right. And they kind of peaked with the bar on that, and every other promotion since has been trying to like think they can do it by booking it that when it's like, well, no, you need the right professionals in there. And you're right, it's because people like Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin are very meticulous about the details of a wrestling match, especially someone like Bret Hart, which is why I think the match is so perfect.
Yeah,
that way. I mean, it is one of those ones that would be on a lot of people's top 10 lists.
For
and
sure.
It is just down to the fact like Bret Hart is just such meticulous with these kind of details. And yeah, you're right. I think this is basically one of the crucial moments that without potentially this match, the Attitude Era and the career of Stone Cold Steve Austin, could have been very different.
Absolutely. And the popularity of wrestling as an art form, I think, like, as an art form and a sport, would have been so much different if it wasn't for face Austin, heel Hart, so on and so forth. Yeah, the way that this changed history in itself, and also just a cherry on top. Do you know who had a great showing this match? The special guest referee Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock, yeah.
My man got a pop because he got Bret Hart off of Austin after the match and stood there and just went like that. And I was just like, you go, pal, you go, fella. You're great. I love you, Ken Shamrock.
you go, Ken Shamrock. 2 for you, Ken Shamrock.
With the fact that, yeah, it made Ken Shamrock look good too. Like everyone came from this match just shining bright as they can. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this was more or less Ken Shamrock's debut in WWE.
More or less, yeah.
I don't think he'd actually probably wrestled. Yeah, I think he'd been around, but I don't think he probably wrestled. And this is just kind of the teaser for who he was, I guess.
It's easy to forget how big of a muscly boy he is until you see him in a ref top. Oh God, yeah, no. I always think when people say like, what is the most baby face moment in wrestling? There's a couple moments I will get to on this list, but this is one of the ones that I do think about. Steve Austin passing out, then doing the weirdest stunner on the other referee, just because he's on one leg and very tired. But yeah, protects him in defeat as well. Still makes him look like a badass tweener. Yeah. I think about this match and I smile a lot.
Solid choice. All right, excellent choice there for number 9, Scott. So please gracious with your number 8 pick.
My number 8 pick is Jim Cornette's favorite match of the last 3 years, and it had no crowd. It's Walter versus Dragunov.
Bam.
The first one.
The first one.
Yeah, I think whatever you need to know about this match is plastered all over Dragunov's chest. Yeah, this was the best example, I think, of strong style outside of Japan. Like this was a fight. This was I think about this match, in my opinion, the fact that there was no crowd improved it.
Oh, I 100% agree. Like a lot of people, I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like a lot of people do rate the second one quite a bit. But I feel like, again, this is one of those rare times COVID actually had an effect on a match positively. Because not having the crowd there, you could hear literally every shot they were throwing into it. And that just made it, because there are points in this match you feel like almost like you're watching, it's not the best comparison, like almost like you're watching a snuff film. A little bit. You're kind of like, I feel dirty for watching this, but I kind of like it.
Yeah. And it's like, in my opinion, and the reason why it made number 8 over its sequel is because Dragunov was beaten so horribly in defeat, but kept, like, really took the fight to Walter nonetheless. I think he looked better in this, despite losing, than when he won in the sequel. He just looked like an absolute warrior. I love Dragunov so much, and Walter, it goes without saying at this point. And yeah, these are another. This is another singles match I'd love to see. I'd love to see it at like a Mania, just to see what people's reactions to it would be. But that very much hinges on both men being used well, especially now one's called Gunter, and who knows what Dragunov's going to be called, especially after the current Russian tensions. So I just hope that I just hope. And the strikes in this match as well, they're so beautifully stiff. It looks like at no point in this match that they are either man are going stiff to the point where they're going into business for themselves. It looks like they might have had a pre-match agreement. It's like, we're okay to beat the ever-loving, the stuffing out of one another. We're cool for that, yeah? Great. See you out there, bye-bye. It's like, it's a stiff to the point where it gets the other person over. Every single element of it. And of course, I love the picture of the post-match interview where Dragunov's just covered in red marks. Looks like he's had enough, but he's still trying to get interviewed by that woman. Yeah. Oh no, I have, and just the way this match builds up, and it never relents, it never breaks. I think there's barely a rest hold. Barely.
Yeah. It's just straight chops and kicks to the point where you're like, are they trying to kill each other? But like, I feel like that just kind of speaks a lot to them because they are very much cut from the same cloth when it comes to wrestling. They are very passionate about this industry and putting on these kind of matches. And I mean, people who would have followed them for ages would have known they've had similar encounters in WXW and Progress.
Yeah.
Very much, this is something that they've done on the indies for a long time. And finally, we're able to bring it to the main stage. And I mean, proven point is the fact like NXT UK is actually a really good brand. If you actually check it out, it's got good stories, really good production, solid matches, but no one seems to give it the focus it deserves. This got like mainstream attention on WWE. Like it had people like Drew McIntyre watching and reacting to it, which speaks volumes to how good it was.
And Shawn Michaels, I think, reacted to it too.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. That's the problem with NXT UK, and it's sad, really, because everything else about NXT UK is absolutely fine. I would change nothing else. But the problem with NXT UK is that it's just not marketed, and it feels like it then makes me feel like the people in Connecticut just don't care about it. When in actuality, like, they are just quietly bubbling away on BT Sport, making great wrestling content, and the mainstream WWE media just aren't putting adverts out for it.
No,
like,
not at
like
all.
not,
I mean,
not even on like the network or anything. Like they'd like advertise stuff like Ms. and Mrs. Fair enough, and all that stuff. But just like, yeah. I mean, like, look at the names like Jordan Devlin and A-Kid and Dragunov, of course. Which and we're forgetting British Strong Style as well, Mustache Mountain. They're all sublime wrestlers. Jenny's on there, for crying out loud. Like, it's got a packed women's division too. But they're just quietly bubbling away, making really good wrestling. One day they'll somehow find a way back to that big spotlight that they got from this match, and maybe then WWE will remember that they exist.
Yeah, I mean,
simple as that.
You hope, you really hope. I mean, it must speak some volumes that are following the last 2 years of extreme cuts. NXT UK is yet to be hit by them, which is surprising.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe you're right. Maybe they just still see some value in it. I mean, the fact that they've spent the time setting up and gutted a lot of the British scene to get that show off the ground. I mean, who knows? But yeah, absolutely, like, solid match. Like this would possibly be in contention for one of my top 10 matches, or at least part of my really long honorable mentions as well. It was just so I just
everyone needs a 30 match long honorable mentions.
I think you're right though as well. I just prefer this over the second one. I enjoy. I just wasn't too psyched on the ending of it. It just kind of comes a bit out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like there's much of like the sort of in story build to it. Whereas this one is perfectly done. Like it is just both men getting really scrappy with each other, and Ilya never backing down until he just can't do it anymore, and Walter manages to walk away.
Yeah. And Walter can really tell a story during a match as well. Like I said with the Bret Austin, the ways that Walter shows his frustration out of not being able to put this little warrior down, and going to deeper and deeper lengths to make sure he does so. It just really helps with the overall story arc of the match. It has like a real definitive like arc all the way through. I really appreciate this what this match is.
100%, man. Again, another solid pick there. So what have we got for number 6? Wait,
7.
Number 7, sorry.
Yes. Number 7 took up an entire hour, like, not an entire hour, entire half hour of my morning this morning, because these are two wrestlers that also have, I believe, a trilogy and then some extra matches on the main roster. Yes, this is another NXT match. There's going to be a lot of them, trust me. But I think this is the match that I think, it's because of one spot is why it's here. 1 or 2 spots, I think, actually. This is the Iron Woman match. Takeover Respect between Sasha Banks and Bayley. The heel versus face dynamic in this match is literally akin to CM Punk and MJF.
Yeah.
Except if MJF was just lovable and adorable and relatable, and if MJF was a woman. The fact that, and the reason it's on this list over its predecessors, and the first initially it was their first match that was on this list.
Okay.
But then I rewatched this and I was like, nah, Sasha Banks makes a child cry. Why is this has got to be there? Like the whole fall where Sasha grabs Bayley, throws her in the Titantron, and that Titantron does the thing I love about NXT as well, which they never do on the main roster. Is when someone's thrown into a screen, the screen does that strange static stuff, and it helps really sell the moment so well. And then Sasha just nicks her little bow tie like hair. I forget what they're called. That one,
hair
that
clip thing. Yeah.
hair thing, hair band. There we go. With the bow on it, she nicks it, puts it on her head, and does this as she's crying to her dad. And the cameramen are like, yeah, let's get every moment of this bad boy, yeah. And just bilking it. The crowd are going nuts. This was literally because this was done in front of the Full Sail crowd. This wasn't even like a whole arena thing, but Full Sail were loud from start to finish. I adore the Full Sail crowd. There were occasions where I'm like, oh, they're getting themselves over a bit. That kind of sucks. But but when the chips were down and it was matches like this, they knew when to get serious and they knew when to help the wrestlers out. And this is the perfect time to do it as well. This Bayley just like the other subtleties in imagery, like Bayley starting off with the full pony, neat as hell, finishing off the half hour with just a lion's mane of chaotic hair. You can barely see that the ponytail, yes, is still kind of in, but like, the recall to because in the first match, Sasha destroyed Bayley's hand in the ring steps, and it played into a lot of the match. Including a really good spot where Bayley's reaching for the ropes in the Banks statement, and Banks is just stepping on her hand repeatedly. It gets over the hatred and the bitterness of that rivalry, but Bayley does it back to Sasha, and it plays into the final pinfall where Bayley's got Sasha in the Bank statement this time, like a modified version, and then just peels her hand back. And in this most beautifully like brutal spot where you got this lovable hugger Bayley being meticulous and maniacal and precise in her tactics. And the fact that last fall happened in the last 4 seconds of the half-hour countdown as well. This was just a fabulously paced match, they do a reverse Rana off the top better than most wrestlers do nowadays. And I'd love to see this rivalry back. I'd love to see the legit boss Sasha back. And I'd love to see Hugger Bayley back. And I'd love to just see them do this match again. Because why not? It was really good.
It was really good. Let's do it again.
Yeah. But whenever they're like, when they come up with when WWE are just constantly like, what can the women do now that would make history now? I don't know, 2-on-1 handicap match. Oh, first ever women's 2-on-1 handicap match. Watch them make history. But like this was an actual case of them making history. The Iron Woman match. It showed vignettes of them training leading up to this point. Showed vignettes like. Of the previous match and how it stole the show from Takeover Brooklyn, which is another great takeover.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This, in my opinion, and also the other horsewomen and Stephanie McMahon clapping from the sidelines as well, just a sign of good things to come. Really, that's my love letter to this match. I rewatch it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think what a lot of people forget is about when it comes to the dynamic of the 4 horsewomen. It really was Sasha and Bayley that were basically pulling that along in NXT for the longest time. Like I know Charlotte Flair obviously had the NXT Women's title for a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, they were the two that really sort of spearheaded that whole women's revolution, evolution, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's just interesting the dynamic shift. I mean, they've both done tremendously well on the main roster in their own right. I think I remember this is like one of the first NXT matches I might have ever seen as well. I was a bit late to it. I started watching NXT about 2014. So I think this is one of the first ones I saw. I just remember it being like mind blowing, because I mean, by that point, I hadn't seen a women's match like this at all, if ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It just kind of
yeah.
showed that WWE were really on the pulse of something, and it was great that they finally capitalized on it.
Yeah, it showed them just being like athletes and just wrestlers and not divas. And this was like the big instance of that, really. I mean, we
Yeah.
had some key marquee matches, of course, beforehand in NXT between Paige and Emma. That was around the time I started watching NXT when they started. They were literally just a couple weeks before they both hit the main roster, basically. But I'd always go back and watch highlights of their feud. Paige being like the anti-diva and Emma doing the weird dance that made her really funny. And the fact that there was a similar dynamic in this feud too, with the like real meticulous Sasha Banks and the lovable, colorful babyface of Bailey. But I think I've said it on this podcast before, but it's the simplest formula of just don't book them as women's wrestlers, just book them as wrestlers, for crying out loud. It's so easy. Just and if they're so stuck with what to do with women's wrestling, just book a men's wrestling match and just put women in it. They can do it. They've shown this is the example of a match in which they can do it, and they can put on a damn good one as well. This is a great match. This is really good.
100%, man. No, it's definitely 100% a standout women's match, and not even just the women's match, but just a standout match in NXT in general. Like, this would probably make a lot of people's top 10 lists for like all-time greatest NXT matches. So yeah, 100%. Right, now on to your number 6.
Yes, and this is another one which basically from here on in, any of the following matches could be number 1. And
right.
at one point,
Interchangeable.
at one point, I think, during the process of you asking me to make this list and me having the final draft that I'm presenting to you now, at one point this was number 1.
Okay.
But after some deliberation of my subjective love for each of these matches, to the point where I've ranked them so like on their like rewatchability, this one's certainly really far up there, because if I'm ever in a bad mood, I watch the finish of this match. And sometimes if I'm in a really bad mood, I watch the entire match, and I'm made very happy because this match is a long one. This is Brock Lesnar versus Eddie Guerrero, No Way Out 2005.
Nice.
Because come on,
Yeah.
I just thinking about this match makes me so happy. This is in my opinion, the best version of Brock Lesnar, and one of my favorite baby faces in wrestling ever in Eddie Guerrero. In my eyes, he was still a babyface when he was a heel, because I just loved him. I love him so much. Even when he was fighting for the custody of someone's kid.
Were you like, you can win, Dominic?
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, he could be in worse hands. I mean, like, come on, yeah. But I love Eddie Guerrero so much because he was like the epitome of like a Robin Hood character, where he uses like his dastardly cunning, but in such a brilliant way, and it wove into this masterful tale of like the underdog versus the brutish champion who's like too cocky. This was like a good American sports underdog movie. It's the type thing where it starts with Brock Lesnar's just in control and he's showboating, telling him at the start like you ain't nothing, and just not taking his competitor seriously. But there's like strategy, that like the 4D chess that you can. This is all, by the way, to address wrestling as a whole. I'm aware that this is all fiction, and I'm aware that this is just two people telling a story, but it's told so well. It's just like that tiny little minuscule bit of detail plays into the strategy overall for Eddie Guerrero, where he's playing this game of 4D chess that Brock's not even aware he's playing to the point where Guerrero gets him in this advantageous position where he's finally able to just get Brock down by the ring post and smash his leg to the point where Brock has to then realize during the match where he's like, hold on, he's been working over my leg so much that I now have lost half of my, I've lost my balance. I've lost my ability to do a lot of my best moves and he's just the entire time. Guerrero doesn't go for, I think for 2/3 of the match, doesn't go for any other body part of Lesnar. Doesn't even go for a punch. Everything's aimed at that same left leg. And it works so well into just, and it just builds and builds off of that. Sometimes in a WWE, especially a main event match, which they make go for as long as this match did. I think this match is like 40-odd minutes long. Sometimes it can just be like rest hold, and held into the corner, miss a clothesline, thrown to the outside, boast to the crowd. Okay, it's gonna get fun soon, and it usually does. This match was just like a constant back and forth. Will Eddie do it? Kind of thing. No, Brock's too powerful. Like another thing I like is anime, but maybe not as much as most anime fans. But this is this match was that. And then I just after all this stuff, I then just start listing the final spots, i.e., the Goldberg near fall, where Goldberg comes in and just spears Brock when Brock gets the championship belt after knocking out Hebner with the F5. And then that makes for a near fall where Guerrero, of course, goes to pin. And it's literally, I know that this phrase is used so often that it makes him numb at this point, but 2 3/4. And Brock kicked out at that last possible time. You can hear the crowd, because the crowd are slow to get into this match, but when they're into it, they really are. Because at one point, they're chanting Goldberg at Lesnar because they're just like, he's going to win. There's no way Eddie's coming out with this with a win. He's going to win. The F5 attempt into the DDT onto the belt that came not long after that is a very famous wrestling spot that was performed to absolute perfection. And then just the ending is enough to make you cry, because he runs straight into the audience, jumps on them, everyone's celebrating, everyone's having an amazing time, and he goes straight to his parents who are just bawling their eyes out, and the crowd is still going nuts at this point. This was seeing Eddie Guerrero with that beautiful undisputed belt is, like I said, I go back to this match when I'm just like, oh, a bit of a downer day today, a bit gloomy. Let's watch Eddie Guerrero be a hero, and this is why it's one of my favorite matches of all time. It's that go back ability that will factor into this and the next 5 of my matches.
Okay. No, I fully respect that, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember watching this match live when it happened, but I do remember the following of Eddie Guerrero as champion, and how like monumental that was. That was like a defining period I remember as a kid watching Smackdown every week as Guerrero as champion. I think what's surprising about his run is he was one of those wrestlers that was never fully confident about being world champion, which is surprising given the way he performs. But yeah, he was never confident about being champion, never fully felt like he should have been world champion. When in my opinion, he was like tremendous in the role. And again, what would be shocking about this match is that literally a month on WrestleMania, Brock's having his last match for like 10 plus years with WWE, just walking out the door, flipping Vince off on his way out.
Yeah.
And then it's just the fact that you've got that ending visual, which we can never show anymore, of just him and Benoit hugging.
Yeah.
Like 2 guys who many people thought would have never been at the pinnacle, getting there together and basking in that moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's akin to seeing what if Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens had both the top belts. Like, it would be akin to that, and it's something I'd like to see because I love NXT so much. But like, that's also is like this amazing visual made kind of somber by, of course, what happened after that, but as a snow globe moment, if you trap those feelings in that globe and just like forget about what happens outside of it, it's such a precious wrestling moment, such a feel good moment. I wouldn't mind just yeah, I wouldn't mind just keeping that actual thing in a snow globe. To be fair, just seeing like just look, it's snowing over Benoit and Guerrero. Look, I'm gonna put that there and just forget anything that happened with those two ever.
Well, I know what I'm
apart
getting
from-
you for Christmas, Scott.
Thank you. But yeah, this was actually one of those matches that I watched. I didn't watch it live, but I remember watching it when I was very young. I think it's.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about how the years add up. Whether I watched this after I wasn't watching it as much, and I just kind of dipped into it, and I didn't know what to think about it as a kid. Because when you're a kid, you're just like, "Hey, look, it's the Undertaker. He's dead." But yeah, no, it always evokes feelings of, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a human being. I like films like The Mighty Ducks and just like Dodgeball and
Yeah.
stuff like that, where or any of the Rocky films, where it's just like, oh, underdog sportsman from America or wherever, beating. I mean, I'm a Southampton supporter at the end of the day. I have to support the underdog. The underdog is just my life. So whenever I see something like this in any of that and this match, I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna love it no matter what. And this match was just, to me, is one. I can actually use the hyperbole here. One of the best matches of all time.
Oh, man, I mean, 100%. It is a tremendous match. So, hey, I mean, it's your list as well. So, I mean, more
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
you.
I'm in charge of what's good around here.
I do what I say.